Hello everyone and welcome back to the Netherworld Bibliotek. My name is Vervain and today I am in the crime fiction section to tell you about our latest acquisition, which is The Hypnotist by Lars Kepler. This book is published by HarperCollins Publishing. The cover design is by Claire Ward and the cover photo is by Dave Wall, Archangel Images. I will leave links to all of those things in the description section. So this is a crime fiction series which is set in present-day Sweden, and it follows Detective Joona Linna as he solves a number of gruesome cases. This is going to be a vlog-style book review, so without any further ado, let me show you what that looks like. Hey everyone! So with this book review, I'm going to try something different. So instead of just sitting down and filming one entire book review, I've decided that as I'm reading, if there's something that really strikes me and I want to talk about it or react to it, I'm just going to stop and film while I'm reading. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the level of violence in this book. So I'm maybe about 20 pages in, but already I've read a couple of scenes where I'm just like, wow, like that is so graphic, that is so imaginative. The killer in this book is doing things that I would never have even, thought of. I've never read this level of barbarity in any other book. And I've read a lot of Scandinavian crime fiction. I've watched a lot of true crime documentaries. So you would think, I've, seen it all, nothing would shock me anymore. But no, there are a couple of things already just 20 pages in where I'm like, wow, like who thinks of this? This killer is so thorough in the utter devastation that they inflict upon their victims. So yeah, credit to Lars Kepler for thinking of such details. I like that The Hypnotist has short chapters because I'm someone that likes to read to the end of a chapter. I don't like having to find some random place to stop reading. So The Hypnotist has maybe 5-10 pages per chapter, so there's lots of opportunities for me to be like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna stop here, or oh, you know what, I could maybe read another chapter before I go to sleep or something like that. So yeah, I really like short chapters. It gives me lots of opportunities to pause my reading. Oh, and also this series is written in present tense, so everything is happening as you're reading. And I don't know of any other series that I read that is in present tense, but I definitely like it because it makes this series stand out because, as I mentioned, I read a lot of Scandinavian crime fiction, and sometimes I can go a couple of years between reading this book in the series and the next book in the series. So when I pick up the new book, I'm like, which one was this? Which characters was it? Which storyline is it? Whereas with the Lars Kepler, Joona Linna books, I'm always like, oh, the one that's in present tense. Oh yeah, Joona Linna, he's the, chief inspector of police, Finnish descent in Sweden. Like, yeah, that one. Okay, yeah, I know what I'm doing now. So yeah, I think it's a way for Lars Kepler to really distinguish their work because there's many other Scandinavian crime fiction authors out there, and it's what is it? It's a monopolistic competition. So there's many people doing a similar thing or producing a similar product, but not quite the same. So I really think writing in present tense is one way that they make their work stand out against their peers. All right, so I've read a bit more of The Hypnotist and I have a theory for what's going to happen. So I should stress that this is just my theory and I haven't read that much of the book. So as you can see, I'm not very far into it. But I've found out that the murderer prefers to use a knife to do what they do. And I've also learned that there is a character who has haemophilia. So if you're not familiar with haemophilia, it is a condition that prevents your blood from clotting or coagulating. So I wonder, like at this point in time, the murderer and this character with haemophilia don't know each other, but I wonder if later on in the book they will cross paths, and I wonder if this character is going to be a victim and maybe there's going to be, a race against time to save them. I don't know, that's my theory. if it turns out to be true, I'm obviously not going to come back and tell you, because that would, you know, spoil the book for you. But yeah, that's just my theory. And yeah, I love it when a book can, you know, get my brain working. And I love when I'm like, oh, have I joined the dots? Have I put two and two together? So yeah, it's just really gotten me more interested in the book, and now I want to keep reading and see if I'm right. I just want to address the fact that yes, I am wearing my pajamas once again, and that is because I tend to read a little bit before I go to bed. It's not because I live in my pajamas 24/7. So okay, now that that's out of the way, let's just move on to the book. So I have read some more of The Hypnotist, and I have learned about the childhood of the murderer. And I don't want to give too much away, so I'm just going to say that when I read what I read, my reaction was, where are the parents? Because I've just read about some really troubling behavior. There are some very clear red flags or warning signs, as in, you know, so many cases with other murderers, whether they're fictional characters or real life murderers. And I just think, where are the parents? If they had intervened, then surely what went on to happen would not have happened. But having said that, this is a crime novel. Obviously, something needs to happen. There needs to be a crime. Otherwise, what would you write about? You don't write a book about, you know, an average citizen just going about their business. Although actually, having said that, I have actually read a book like that. I have read Felix Onnellinen by Mika Valtari, and that is exactly what it is about. It's just an average man named Felix Onnellinen, and it's just about him going about his day. Okay, so with the exception of Felix Onnellinen, usually books are about something unusual, something out of the ordinary. You know, there's it's a problem that needs to be resolved, sort of thing. And yeah, again, The Hypnotist is a crime fiction novel, so there does need to be a crime. But nonetheless, having read what I read, I want to know, you know, where were the parents? And maybe if I keep reading, maybe I'll find out where the parents were. So I'll keep reading and I will check in with you later. Hey everyone, I've got this set up for a different video that I just filmed, but I thought while I'm here, I may as well jump in and tell you a bit more about The Hypnotist, and for once I will not be in my pajamas when I do that. So one thing that has come up in The Hypnotist and a lot of previous Scandinavian crime fiction that I've read is the topic of affairs. And it seems to be that the formula for Scandinavian crime fiction is crime, newspapers, and affairs, because they're just really, really prevalent in all the Scandinavian crime fiction that I read. So at first I thought, okay, cool, yeah, this storyline just happens to have someone having an affair, fine. And then I read another Scandinavian crime fiction novel and someone else is having an affair. And then I read yet another Scandinavian crime fiction novel and can you guess what's happening? Another person is having an affair. And I'm like, okay, I feel really sad right now because the books that I read are usually set in modern times. Like they're normally, sometimes the books even include a map of the city as it is today, and they mention actual locations or facilities that exist in that city as it is today. So yeah, they're not like fantasy fiction. They're reflecting that city and that society as it is. And so that made me think, okay, how come so many of these Scandinavian crime fiction novels feature affairs? Like, is that a very common thing that happens in these cultures? And yeah, that made me really sad at first. I've kind of gotten used to it now, but yeah, having read The Hypnotist and surprise, someone is having an affair in this book as well, I just thought I would yeah, pop in and mention it and be like, they're very, very common in Scandinavian crime fiction. So yeah, drink every time I have said Scandinavian crime fiction. To be clear, when I say Scandinavia, I am referring to Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. So if you are from these countries, let me know, are affairs especially common in these countries? Or if you have a theory on why they're popping up so much in this particular genre, yeah, let me know. Something that I've been considering for a while now is that The Hypnotist isn't who you initially think it is. So the book is called The Hypnotist, and there is a character in this book who practices hypnosis. So at first I thought, okay, yeah, this is The Hypnotist, fine. But I have read a few scenes which have made me question that. and I wonder if there's going to be a twist at the end where the hypnotist is someone else and they hypnotize people in order to either make them do their bidding, or they hypnotize people as a way to sort of traumatize them and implant ideas into their minds. I'm not sure, I haven't finished the book yet. Either way, I'm not going to come back and tell you if my suspicions were correct, because obviously if you want to read the book for yourself, I don't want to spoil the ending for you. But nonetheless, as I am documenting my reading journey, I thought that I would just pop in and share my hypothesis with you. Back on the topic of tense, and I have noticed that if something is happening in the here and now, then it's written in the present tense. However, if a character is recalling a memory, those scenes are written in past tense, and then when we move back into the present, we once again have those scenes written in present tense. And that is just really logical to me. That just makes perfect sense that you would write a story like that. However, I noticed that very few stories that I read are written in present tense. Normally the books that I read, or the fictional books that I read, everything is in present tense. Even if you're jumping between what's happening now and someone recalling a memory, still everything is written in past tense. So yeah, it's really sort of noticeable that Lars Kepler is, or are, the only authors that I can think of off the top of my head that use this technique. But yeah, maybe that's because I remember when I was at school back in my day, I remember our teachers saying, just choose one tense and just for that story, just write consistently in one tense, don't jump around. And I wonder if maybe more people were taught like that and it's just ingrained in their mind to just, write your story in one tense. But I think Lars Kepler really, really do a good job of jumping from tense to tense as appropriate. And yeah, I think with creative pursuits, the rules are not, set in stone. I think for creative pursuits, it's more a case of you first have to know the rules in order to be able to break the rules. All right, so I have finished reading The Hypnotist, and I thought I would just pop in once again and talk about two more things that are on my mind. So the first is that there are a couple of crimes going on in this book. So there are two major crimes that run parallel. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about is a fictional scenario that plays out, but which I think could also apply in the real world. So I think there's something we could learn from this fictional scenario. But anyway, firstly, there are two parallel crimes that play out in The Hypnotist. The first one refers to a murder, and that storyline is pretty straightforward. So we find out who the murderer is early on, and they've got pretty clear motive, means, and opportunities. So that's the first storyline. It's pretty straightforward, but it's still engaging. I'm not saying that it's boring or anything like that. It's still quite dynamic. Nonetheless, there is the second storyline, which is about an abduction, and I won't give away too many details just in case you want to read the book for yourself. But the second storyline is about an abduction, and this one is not so straightforward. So there are multiple suspects who arise, and there's a lot of sort of frustration looking at how the family are coping with the disappearance of this person, and it also looks at the police following up different leads. And it's only really towards the last 10% of the book that we really make any headway with the abduction storyline. So yeah, I just thought it was really interesting that it's one book but with parallel crimes going on, if you will, whereas normally it's like one crime per book. So yeah, I just thought it was worth pointing that out. Although Lars Kepler is actually a pseudonym for a writing duo, so I don't know, maybe one of them was writing one story, then the other one was writing the other story, and maybe then they just merged everything at the end. I don't know, probably not. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting that there were two parallel cases going on, whereas I can't think of another book where that happened. But yeah, I think that the book was really well paced, because you would make some headway with one case, and then maybe that case would stall, and then maybe you would jump onto the other case. So the book never dragged. There was always something going on. And yeah, I think especially with the abduction storyline, where it's really in the last 10% of the book that we really make headway with that storyline. I think it was really important to have the second murder storyline going on so that, we didn't get bored, we weren't treading water, because The Hypnotist it's quite a thick book. But yeah, I was never bored. I was never like, oh, come on. And yeah, unfortunately, I have read some other really thick books. The Deliverance of Evil by Roberto Costantini, I think it is. That comes to mind, and that book did not need to be as long as it was. Like, I think 75% of that book probably could have been cut out. It was just too long. It took too long to get to the point. Whereas with The Hypnotist, I think having the two cases playing out simultaneously really kept the book engaging. So anyway, the next thing that I wanted to talk about is one of the characters is accused of doing something, and as soon as he is accused, he is basically considered to be guilty or found guilty in the court of public opinion. And this then goes on to really ruin his reputation, and it takes 10 years until he is cleared of these accusations. And unfortunately, I do know of some instances like that in the real world where people have been accused of something and you're just already considered guilty in the court of public opinion. So very recently, there is a true crime channel which I follow here on this platform, and this particular person was accused of plagiarism, and as soon as they were accused, people just thought she must be guilty, she must be plagiarizing, and have just flooded this person's social media accounts with all kinds of insults and all kinds of personal threats and harassment. And I believe this person has now cleared their name. They have provided reference checks showing that they did not plagiarize, but because they are talking about true crime cases, the facts are the facts. So if you're reporting, this person was murdered and this is their name and this is their age and this is their build and this is where they were last cited, those are the facts. So anyone who is reporting on that case, you're just going to have to state the same facts, because facts are not up for interpretation. So you may get some reports which are very similar, but it doesn't mean that people are plagiarizing. It's just you can't take liberties with facts. And yeah, I was debating whether or not to bring this up, but yeah, I just think you can learn things from books. Like, even if they are fictional books, I think sometimes there are life lessons that you can take from books. So there could be, case studies, so to speak, from fictional characters. And yeah, when I was reading about this person, and as soon as they were accused, that was it, they were considered guilty. And for 10 years in this book, this person is treated like a pariah. And I didn't know if I wanted to bring that up, but just recently this scandal, shall we say, has come out with this true crime channel that I follow. And I thought, I've got to mention it, because I can see that this person, this content creator, they do put a lot of research into their work, and they have verified that they cite their sources. And it's not fair that someone has assumed something and then made a very public accusation, and then other people, without checking their facts, without waiting for the other side of the story, they have now gone and harassed this content creator who is very obviously distressed. And they've shown that they do cite their sources and explained that when you're stating facts, the facts are the facts. Everyone is obviously going to be reporting the same facts if you're reporting on the same case. Okay, so I'm not actually sure how to wrap up this vlog. I might insert like another clip where I might have like a different background, because I'm not actually sure how to wrap this up. We'll have to wait and see what happens. And that concludes my vlog style book review of The Hypnotist by Lars Kepler. Please let me know what you think of this book review style. If you have watched any of my previous book reviews, please let me know if you have a preference for one of the two styles. And also let me know if you have read this book, and if you have any of your own thoughts or commentaries on the content. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you very much for stopping by, and maybe I will see you next time.